Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. The New Frontier was humanity's best exploration vessel. For 3 months, they had been waiting for a reply from the aliens. Today, that reply finally came. The alien ship was huge. It looked like a giant crystal floating in space. Its surface was smooth and curved, nothing like the metal ships humans built. The alien vessel was 10 times bigger than the New Frontier. Jake felt small looking at it. "Captain, they're sending a message," said Amy Watson. She was the communications officer. Her fingers moved quickly over her controls. "They want to meet face to face." Jake nodded. This was the moment they had trained for. First contact with an alien race. Tell them we accept. Set up the meeting room. 2 hours later, Jake waited in the meeting room with his senior officers. Dr. Lisa Park stood beside him. She was the ship's alien expert. Commander Ryan Brooks was there too, ready for any trouble. They all wore their best uniforms. The alien transport ship docked with the New Frontier. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. 2 figures walked through. The first alien was tall and strong. He had 4 arms and blue skin that looked like metal. His eyes were large and bright. He moved like a soldier, confident and ready for battle. This was Frairen. The second alien was smaller, but no less impressive. She had silver hair and eyes that seemed very old and wise. Her skin was pale white, and she moved with grace. This was Miss Rimiki. "Welcome to our ship," Jake said. He tried to keep his voice steady. "I am Captain Jake Morrison." Frairen spoke first. His voice was deep and powerful. "I am Frairen of the Zephyrian Empire. This is Miss Rimiki, my partner. In this mission," Miss Rimiki stepped forward. Her voice was soft but clear. "We greet you, humans. We have watched your people for some time." Dr. Park leaned forward. "You have been watching us?" "Yes," Frairen said. "Your species is unusual. Most races take thousands of years to reach the stars. You did it in just a few hundred." Jake felt a chill. "Is that a problem?" Miss Rimiki smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "That depends on many things. We are here to learn about your people, to see if you are ready for what lies beyond your solar system." The meeting continued for hours. The aliens asked many questions about human history, culture, and goals. They wanted to know about human wars, about how humans work together, about human dreams and fears. Dr. Park answered most of the questions. She explained how humans had learned to cooperate despite their differences. She talked about human art, science, and exploration. Commander Brooks remained quiet, but Jake could see he was worried. Something about this meeting felt like a test. "Your species interests us," Frairen said finally. "Most races fight among themselves when they reach space. They break apart into small groups. Humans seem to grow stronger together. We have our problems," Jake admitted, "but we try to solve them together." Miss Rimiki nodded. "This is what makes you special. But it also makes you dangerous." "Dangerous?" Jake asked. "The galaxy is not empty," Frairen explained. "There are many races, many empires. Some are peaceful. Others are not. A species that grows strong quickly can upset the balance." Miss Rimiki stood up. "We represent the Zephyrian Empire. We keep peace in this part of the galaxy. When a new race reaches the stars, we must decide if they can join us safely." Jake understood now. This was more than first contact. This was Judgment Day for humanity. "What happens if we fail your test?" Commander Brooks asked. Frairen's expression was hard. "That depends on how dangerous we think you are." The room was quiet for a long moment. Jake felt the weight of his entire species on his shoulders. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "We want to see who you really are," Miss Rimiki said. "Not just your words, but your actions. We will test your people. We will see how you handle challenges, how you treat others, how you face fear. Dr. Park spoke up, and if we pass, then humanity will have a place in the galactic community, Frairen said. You will have allies and protection. You will learn technologies beyond your imagination. And if we fail? Jake asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. Miss Rimiki looked sad. Then we will have to make sure humanity does not become a threat to the galaxy. The meeting ended with an agreement. The human crew would come aboard the alien ship for testing. Jake did not like the idea, but he had no choice. The future of humanity depended on what happened next. As the aliens prepared to leave, Miss Rimiki approached Dr. Park privately. Your species shows great promise, she said quietly. But the galaxy is full of dangers. There are things out there that destroy entire civilizations. Frairen and I must decide if humanity is ready to face these threats. What kind of threats? Dr. Park asked. Miss Rimiki looked out at the stars. Ancient evils that feed on the life force of entire worlds. They have been growing stronger for thousands of years. We need allies who can help us fight them. And you think humans might be those allies? Perhaps, Miss Rimiki said. But first, you must prove you are ready. The tests will be hard. Some of your people may not survive. Dr. Park felt fear creep into her heart. What exactly are you testing? Everything, Miss Rimiki said simply. Your courage, your wisdom, your ability to work with others. Most importantly, your ability to put the good of many above the good of few. The alien delegates returned to their ship. Jake gathered his senior officers to discuss what they had learned. We are not just representing Earth anymore, he told them. We are fighting for humanity's future in the galaxy. Commander Brooks was direct. Do you trust them? Jake looked out at the alien ship. I do not know, but we have no choice. If we refuse their tests, we may never get another chance. Dr. Park was already preparing for what lay ahead. We need to select our best people for the tests. People who can handle pressure and make good decisions. No, Jake said firmly. We go as we are. If they want to judge humanity, they should judge real humans, not just our best. Amy Watson spoke up. What if we fail? Jake looked at each of his officers. Then we fail together, but I believe in humanity. We have survived everything our own planet could throw at us. We can survive this too. The next morning, the human crew prepared to board the alien ship. Jake looked back at Earth through the view screen. It seemed so small and far away, but it was worth fighting for. The real test was about to begin. The alien ship was like nothing Jake had ever seen. The walls seemed alive, glowing with soft blue light. The corridors curved and twisted in ways that made no sense. Everything felt warm and breathing, as if they were inside a living creature. Welcome to the Starweaver, Frairen said as he led the human crew through the ship. She is grown, not built. All our ships are living beings. Ben Collins, the ship's engineer, stared at the walls in wonder. How is this possible? Your people use metal. And machines, Miss Rimiki explained. We use biology and growth. Both methods work, but ours lives and learns. The crew was given quarters in a section of the ship that had been modified for human needs. The rooms were comfortable, but strange. The walls pulsed gently, and the air tasted different. The tests begin tomorrow, Frairen announced. You will be tested individually and as a group. These are not tests of strength or knowledge. They are tests of character. That night, Jake could not sleep. He walked the corridors of the alien ship, trying to understand what they were facing. He found Dr. Park in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Scared? He asked. Terrified, she admitted. We are not just being tested. We are being judged. If we fail, Our entire species pays the price. The next morning, the tests began. Ben Collins was the first to be tested. Frairen led him to a chamber filled with alien technology. Strange devices hummed with power, and lights flashed in patterns that hurt to look at. The ship's main power core is failing, Frairen explained. You must help our engineers fix it. But you cannot understand the technology. You must trust them completely. Ben stared at the alien machines. Everything in him wanted to study them, to understand how they worked. But there was no time for that. The alien engineers were already working, their movements quick and sure. Just tell me what to do, Ben said. For the next 4 hours, Ben worked alongside the aliens. He could not understand their language or their technology. He had to trust them completely, following their directions without question. It went against everything he had learned as an engineer. When the power core was finally fixed, Ben was exhausted. But he felt good. He had learned something important about trust and teamwork. Meanwhile, Dr. Park and Amy Watson faced their own test. Miss Rimiki brought them to a room where they could see a holographic display of a dying alien world. The Kelani people are dying, Miss Rimiki explained. Their star is burning out. They need our help to evacuate their world. But helping them will use resources that could be used to help your own people. The hologram showed millions of alien beings, their cities failing. As their star dimmed, children cried in the streets. Families huddled together, waiting for death. What would you do? Miss Rimiki asked. Dr. Park and Amy looked at each other. The choice seemed impossible. How could they choose between saving aliens and helping their own species? We would help them, Dr. Park said finally. Life is precious, no matter what form it takes. Even if it meant sacrificing human lives, Miss Rimiki, Amy spoke up. We would find a way to help both. Humans are good at solving impossible problems. Miss Rimiki smiled. Explain. For the next hour, Dr. Park and Amy worked together to create a plan. They would help evacuate the Kelani people, but they would also use the opportunity to learn new technologies that could help humanity. They would make the rescue mission benefit everyone. Interesting, Miss Rimiki said when they finished. Most species see only 2 choices, help others or help themselves. You see a third option, help everyone. Captain Jake faced the hardest test of all. Frairen put him in command of a mixed crew of humans and aliens during a simulated crisis. An enemy ship was attacking, and Jake had to protect both human and alien lives. The simulation was incredibly realistic. Jake could feel the ship shaking under enemy fire. Alarms blared, and crew members called out damage reports. But the real test was not about fighting the enemy. It was about leadership. The alien crew members had different ideas about how to handle the crisis. They came from different worlds with different cultures. Some wanted to fight, others wanted to flee. Some trusted Jake's leadership, others questioned every order. Jake realized that the test was not about winning the battle. It was about uniting the crew. He had to find a way to get everyone working together, despite their differences. We are not humans or aliens, he announced over the ship's communication system. We are crew. We protect each other, no matter what world we come from. The battle was hard, but Jake's crew fought as one. They protected each other, shared resources, and worked together to defeat the enemy. When the simulation ended, both humans and aliens were exhausted, but victorious. Tom Fisher and Kate Reynolds worked together on a different kind of test. They were given a puzzle that seemed impossible to solve. The pieces did not fit together in any way that made sense to human minds. Think like a Zephyrian, Miss Rimiki advised. Your human logic will not work here. Tom and Kate struggled with the puzzle for hours. Every time they thought they had found a solution, it fell apart. Finally, Kate had an idea. What if we are thinking about this wrong? she said. What if the puzzle is not about putting pieces together, but about taking them apart? Tom understood immediately. They began removing pieces instead of adding them. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The puzzle was not about building something new, but about revealing something that was already there. Excellent, Miss Rimiki said when they finished. You have learned to think beyond your own perspective. This is essential for galactic citizenship. As the tests continued, the human crew began to understand what they were really being tested for. It was not just about their abilities or their intelligence. It was about their character, their ability to work with others, and their willingness to think beyond their own interests. Dan Cooper, the ship's doctor, faced a test that challenged his medical ethics. He was presented with two patients, a human and an alien. Both were dying, but he only had enough medicine to save one. Who do you save? Frairen asked. Dan looked at both patients. The human was a young woman, barely out of her teens. The alien was an old creature near the end of his natural life. By human standards, the choice was clear. But Dan had learned something during his time on the alien ship. Life was precious in all its forms. Age and species did not matter. I save both, he said firmly. That is not possible, Frairen said. There is only enough medicine for one. Dan smiled. Then I use half the medicine on each patient. They both have a chance to live. But that might kill them both, Frairen warned. Or it might save them both, Dan replied. I will not choose who lives and who dies based on their species or age. I will give both patients the best chance I can. The test ended with both patients surviving. Dan had found a third option that no one else had considered. As the day ended, the human crew gathered to discuss what they had learned. The tests had been hard, but they had also been educational. They had learned about themselves and about what it meant to be part of a larger community. I think we are passing their tests, Dr. Park said. But I also think the real test is just beginning. Jake nodded. They are not just testing our abilities. They are preparing us for something bigger. That night, Miss Rimiki visited Jake in his quarters. She looked tired, as if the day had been as hard for her as it had been for the humans. Your people continue to surprise us, she said. You find solutions where others see only problems. You build bridges where others see only walls. Is that good or bad? Jake asked. Miss Rimiki was quiet for a long moment. It depends on what you do with that ability. The galaxy is full of species that have great potential. But potential can be used for good or evil. What makes you think we might use it for evil? Power corrupts, Miss Rimiki said simply. Your species is gaining power very quickly. We need to know that you will use it wisely. Jake understood. The tests were not just about proving humanity's worth. They were about proving that humanity could be trusted with galactic power. What happens next? He asked. Miss Rimiki looked out at the stars. Next, you learn why these tests are necessary. You learn about the real dangers that threaten the galaxy. And you decide if you are ready to face them. The tests were over, but Jake knew that the real challenge was just beginning. The meeting room was different this time. The walls showed images of space, but not the peaceful stars Jake was used to seeing. These were dark regions where no light shone, where entire solar systems had gone silent. Frairen stood before a large display that showed the galaxy. Red areas marked danger zones. There were many of them, and they were growing larger. The tests you completed were necessary, Frairen began. But they were not the real reason we came to find you. We need to show you something that will change how you see the galaxy. Miss Rimiki touched the display. The image changed to show a solar system that looked dead. The planets were gray and lifeless. The star was dim and flickering. This was the home of the Valdari people, she said sadly. They were a peaceful race, much like humans. They loved art and music. They had just begun to explore space when the Devourers found them. Devourers? Dr. Park asked. Ancient beings made of pure energy, Frairen explained. They feed on the life force of entire worlds. They consume everything, plants, animals, even the energy of stars themselves. The display showed more dead systems, dozens of them. Each one had once been home to a living civilization. How long has this been happening? Jake asked. For thousands of years, Miss Rimiki replied. The Devourers move slowly, but they never stop. They have destroyed 17 major civilizations that we know of. There may be more. Commander Brooks leaned forward. How do they choose their targets? They prefer civilizations that are growing quickly, Frairen said. Species that show rapid development draw their attention. They see such races as the greatest threat to their expansion. Jake felt his blood turn cold. Species like humanity. Exactly. Miss Rimiki confirmed. Your rapid expansion into space has made you a target. The Devourers know about Earth. They are coming. The room fell silent. The human crew stared at the display, trying to understand what they were seeing. How long do we have? Amy asked. Perhaps 50 years, Frairen said. Perhaps less. The Devourers do not move quickly, but they are inevitable. Dr. Park was studying the star charts. How has the Zephyrian Empire survived? By being very careful, Miss Rimiki explained. We expand slowly. We keep our technology simple. We try not to draw attention to ourselves. But that is not enough anymore, Frairen added. The Devourers are growing stronger. They are learning to move faster, to consume more efficiently. Soon, even hiding will not protect us. Ben Collins spoke up. What can we do? How do you fight beings made of energy? That is the problem, Miss Rimiki said. Traditional weapons do not work against them. Ships, missiles, even nuclear weapons are useless. The Devourers absorb all forms of energy and use it to grow stronger. Then how do we stop them? Kate Reynolds asked. Frairen looked at the human crew. We believe the answer lies with your species. Humans think differently than any race we have encountered. You solve problems in ways that should be impossible. What do you mean? Jake asked. Miss Rimiki activated another display. This one showed brain scans of different species. Look at these patterns. Each species has a unique way of thinking. The Zephyrians think in straight lines, very logical. The Kalani think in circles, always returning to the same ideas. The Valdari thought in spirals, building on previous thoughts. She showed them human brain scans. But humans think in webs. Your thoughts connect in ways that make no sense to other species. You make intuitive leaps that seem impossible. How does that help us fight the Devourers? Tom Fisher asked. The Devourers are very old, Frairen explained. They have fought thousands of species. They know how every known race thinks and fights. They can predict and counter any strategy. But they have never fought humans, Miss Rimiki added. Your unpredictable thinking might be the key to defeating them. Dr. Park was beginning to understand. You want humans to lead the fight against the Devourers. Not lead, Miss Rimiki corrected. Catalyze. Your species has another unique ability. You can unite others. You build alliances where others see only enemies. Frairen brought up another display. The galaxy is full of species that hate each other. Old wars, ancient grudges, incompatible ways of thinking. For thousands of years, we have been divided. The Devourers have used this against us, Miss Rimiki said. They attack one species at a time, and the others do nothing. We are picked off one by one. But humans are different, Frairen continued. In your tests, you consistently found ways to bring different groups together. You see cooperation where others see only conflict. Jake was starting to see the bigger picture. You want humanity to unite the galaxy. We want to see if it is possible, Miss Rimiki said. If humans can create a true galactic alliance, we might have a chance against the Devourers. Dan Cooper had been quiet, but now he spoke. What about the other species? Will they accept human leadership? That is the question, Frairen admitted. Many species are proud. They will not easily follow a race that has barely left its home solar system. But they might follow a race that can save them, Miss Rimiki added. If humans can prove they can defeat the Devourers, others will listen. Amy Watson looked at the star charts. How many species are we talking about? Hundreds, Frairen said. Maybe thousands. The galaxy is vast, and most species keep to themselves. But even if we unite a dozen major species, we would have a real chance. Miss Rimiki said hopefully. Jake studied the displays, trying to understand the full scope of what they were asking. You want humanity to risk everything on a plan that might not work. We want humanity to have a chance to survive, Frairen said bluntly. If you do nothing, the Devourers will eventually find Earth. Your species will be consumed like all the others. At least this way, you have a chance to fight back, Miss Rimiki added. The human crew looked at each other. The decision was too big for any one person to make, but they were humanity's representatives in this moment. What would this alliance look like? Dr. Park asked. A combined fleet, Frairen explained. Ships from every member species working together. Shared technology, shared resources, shared knowledge. And shared risks, Miss Rimiki added. If the plan fails, everyone dies together. Ben Collins asked the practical question. What technology? Would we be sharing? What do humans have that advanced species like yours would want? Your adaptability, Miss Rimiki said immediately. Your ability to learn and change quickly. Most species develop one type of technology and stick with it forever. Humans constantly innovate. Your creativity, Frairen added. You solve problems in ways that should not work, but somehow do. This could be the key to developing new weapons against the Devourers. And your unity, Miss Rimiki concluded. Despite your differences, humans work together better than any species we know. In a galactic alliance, this ability would be invaluable. Jake felt the weight of the decision. If we agree to this, what happens to Earth, to humanity? Earth becomes the center of the Galactic Alliance, Frairen said. Your species becomes the bridge between all others. But you also become the primary target of the Devourers. They will come for you first, Miss Rimiki warned. They will try to destroy humanity before the Alliance can form. The room was quiet for a long time. Each human was thinking about home. About the billions of people who had no idea their fate was being decided on an alien ship. We cannot make this decision alone, Jake said finally. We need to contact Earth. Humanity as a whole must choose. There is no time, Frairen said urgently. The Devourers are already moving. By the time your messages reach Earth and decisions are made, it may be too late. Miss Rimiki looked sad. This is the burden of first contact. You few must speak for all humanity. Jake looked at his crew. Dr. Park nodded slowly. Commander Brooks was grim but determined. The others showed fear, but also resolve. What do you need from us? Jake asked. Your commitment, Miss Rimiki said, and your ideas. We need human thinking applied to this problem. Show us everything, Dr. Park said. All your data on the Devourers, all your failed strategies, everything you know about the species that hence might join an alliance. Frairen smiled for the first time since they had met. Then you will help us? Jake thought of Earth, of the children playing in parks, of the artists creating beauty, of the scientists reaching for the stars. All of it could be lost if they did nothing. We will try, he said, but we do this as equals. If humanity is going to unite the galaxy, we all share the risks and the rewards. Miss Rimiki bowed deeply. Then let us begin. The future of the galaxy depends on what we do next. The war for galactic survival was about to begin. The work began immediately. The Starweaver transformed into a floating laboratory where humans and aliens worked side by side. The ship's living walls grew new chambers specifically designed for the research project. Ben Collins found himself working with Zephyrian biotechnicians in a room that pulsed with organic machinery. The aliens had been trying to create weapons that could harm the Devourers for centuries, but every attempt had failed. Energy weapons feed them, explained Corix, one of the Zephyrian scientists. Physical weapons pass right through them. We have tried everything. Ben studied the data on his tablet. The problem was clear. The Devourers existed in a state between energy and matter. They could become solid when they wanted to, but they could also become pure energy to avoid damage. What if we do not try to hurt them? Ben suggested. What? If we tried to confuse them instead? Corix looked puzzled. Confuse them how? Well, they absorb energy to grow stronger, right? What if we feed them the wrong kind of energy? Energy that makes them sick instead of stronger? The alien scientist considered this. That should not be possible. They have been feeding on energy for thousands of years. They can digest anything. But they have only fed on natural energy, Ben pointed out. Stars, planets, living beings. They have never encountered artificial energy patterns designed to harm them. Working together, Ben and Corix began developing a new type of energy weapon. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourers, it would poison them with corrupted energy. Patterns. Meanwhile, Dr. Park was working with Miss Rimiki on a different problem. The Devourers drained the life force from entire worlds. But how exactly did they do it? They create a field around their targets, Miss Rimiki explained. This field slowly drains consciousness and life energy. Once the field is established, there is no escape. Dr. Park studied the medical data from previous Devourer attacks. But the field takes time to establish, right? There must be a way to disrupt it. Many species have tried, Miss Rimiki said sadly. The field adapts to any countermeasures. But they have never faced human countermeasures, Dr. Park said with a smile. Humans are very good at adapting too. They began working on a mental shield that could protect people from the Devourer's consciousness-draining field. The key was not to block the field completely, but to confuse it. Human brains work differently than other species, Dr. Park explained. We can think multiple thoughts at the same time. What if we train people to think in patterns that the Devourers cannot read? Amy Watson was working on the communication problem. How do you coordinate a battle between dozens of species that do not speak the same language or even think in the same way? Each species has different ideas about time, space, and strategy, she explained to her alien counterparts. The Zephyrians think in terms of long-term planning. The Kelani make decisions based on emotion. The Valdari survivors think in mathematical patterns. This is why galactic alliances always fail, sighed Velton, a Kalani communications expert. We cannot understand each other well enough to work together. But humans can understand all of you, Amy said. We adapt our thinking to match whoever we are talking to. We can be the translators. She began developing a new communication system that would allow humans to serve as bridges between different species. Humans would not just translate languages, but translate entire ways of thinking. Tom Fisher was working on navigation. How do you move a fleet of ships from dozens of different species, each with different technology and capabilities? Zephyrian ships are living beings, he explained to his human colleagues. They do not follow the same rules as metal ships. Kalani ships think for themselves and sometimes refuse orders. Valdari ships are controlled by mathematical algorithms that we do not understand. So we need a navigation system that can work. With all of them, Kate Reynolds said. More than that, Tom replied. We need a system that can make them work together. like a conductor leading an orchestra. He began developing a master navigation system that could coordinate hundreds of different ship types. The key was to let each species contribute their strengths while compensating for their weaknesses. Captain Jake was working with Frairen on overall strategy. The Devourers had never faced organized resistance before. They were used to picking off isolated worlds one by one. The key is to make them fight on our terms, Jake explained. We choose the battlefield. We choose the timing. We choose the tactics. But they are much stronger than us, Frairen pointed out. Even with a full alliance, we are outgunned. Strength is not everything, Jake replied. Sometimes the smaller force wins by being smarter. They began planning a campaign that would use the Devourers' own tactics against them. Instead of meeting them in direct battle, the Alliance would use hit-and-run tactics, guerrilla warfare, and psychological attacks. Dan Cooper was working on the most important problem of all: how to keep the Alliance together. Different species had different needs, different fears, different motivations. The Zephyrians want security, he explained to his research team. The Kelani want freedom. The Valdari want revenge. How do we give everyone what they want? By showing them that they can only get what they want if they work together, suggested Dr. Park during one of their meetings. Exactly, Don agreed. We need to make cooperation feel natural, not forced. He began developing psychological techniques that would help different species bond with each other. The idea was to build real friendships between individuals, not just political alliances between governments. As the work progressed, something unexpected happened. The human crew began to change. Working so closely with aliens, they started to think in new ways. They began to see problems from multiple perspectives. At once, I think I understand what Miss Rimiki meant about human potential, Dr. Park said during one of their evening meetings. We are not just adapting to alien ways of thinking. We are learning to think like the galaxy. What do you mean? Jake asked. Most species think in one way, she explained. But humans can think in many ways at the same time. We can be logical like Zephyrians, emotional like Kelani, mathematical like Valdari, all at once. Ben Collins nodded. It is like we are becoming a new kind of being, not just human, but something more. Something that can unite the galaxy. Amy added. The breakthrough came when they realized that the solution was not one big strategy, but many small ones working together. Each species would contribute what they did best, and humans would coordinate everything. The Zephyrians will provide the heavy ships and long-term planning, Jake explained to the assembled research team. The Kelani will provide fast scouts and creative tactics. The Valdari will provide technical expertise and precise calculations. And humans will provide the glue that holds it all together. Miss Rimiki said with pride. The weapons they developed were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourers, they would disrupt their ability to function. Energy weapons that poisoned instead of feeding, mental shields that confused instead of blocking, communication systems that turned the Devourers' own tactics against them. We are not just building weapons, Frairen observed. We are building a new way of thinking about war. A human way, Miss Rimiki agreed. But the most important discovery was about the Devourers themselves. By studying all the data from previous attacks, Dr. Park made a shocking realization. They are not just predators, she announced to the team. They are afraid. Afraid of what? Jake asked. Of being replaced, she replied. The Devourers are the oldest beings in the galaxy. They have been the dominant force for so long that they cannot imagine anything else. They destroy young civilizations because they are terrified of losing their power. This changed everything. The Devourers were not unstoppable monsters. They were bullies who had never been challenged by someone who could fight back. Fear can be used as a weapon, Frairen said, thoughtfully. If we can make them afraid of us, we can defeat them. More than that, Jake added. If we can show them that we do not want to replace them, maybe we can negotiate. Miss Rimiki looked shocked. Negotiate with the Devourers? That has never been attempted, because no one ever understood what they really wanted, Dr. Park explained. Everyone assumed they were just hungry monsters. But they are intelligent beings with fears and motivations. It is worth trying, Frairen agreed. But we must be ready to fight if negotiation fails. The research continued with new urgency. Now they were not just preparing for war, but for the possibility of peace. The weapons they developed could be used for defense or demonstration. The alliance they were building could be a tool of war or diplomacy. We are creating something new, Amy observed. Not just a military alliance, but a new way for species to relate to each other. As the work neared completion, the team realized they had achieved something unprecedented. They had not just solved the Devourer problem, but had created a blueprint for galactic cooperation. Your species has given us hope, Miss Rimiki told Jake during one of their final planning sessions. For the first time in thousands of years, we believe the galaxy can be united. The real test comes next, Jake replied. We have to convince other species to join us, and we have to face the Devourers. The stage was set for the greatest challenge in galactic history. The Alliance was ready. The weapons were prepared. The first test of the Alliance came sooner than expected. Scouts reported that a Devourer advance force was moving toward the outer edges of Zephyrian space. 3 massive energy beings, each the size of a small moon, were consuming everything in their path. This is it, Jake announced to the assembled fleet commanders. Representatives from 12 different species crowded into the New Frontier's expanded meeting room. Our first real battle. The Alliance fleet was impressive, but strange. Zephyrian bioships floated alongside angular Kelani vessels. Valdari. Mathematical ships moved in perfect geometric formations. Human ships, small but fast, guarded between the larger vessels like minnows among whales. Remember the plan, Commander Brooks said over the communications system. We are not trying to destroy them. We are trying to stop them and communicate. A battle took place in the Kepler Nebula, a region of space filled with gas clouds and electrical storms. The environment would interfere with the Devourer's ability to sense their enemies, giving the Alliance an advantage. Captain Jake stood on the bridge of the New Frontier, watching the tactical display. The 3 Devourers moved through space, like living storms, leaving dead planets in their wake. All ships begin Phase 1. Jake ordered. The first attack was not with weapons, but with Ben Collins' poisoned energy weapons. Instead of trying to harm the Devourers, the Alliance ships began broadcasting corrupted energy patterns designed to make the ancient beings sick. The effect was immediate. The Devourers slowed their advance, their forms flickering as they tried to process the strange energy they were absorbing. It's working, Ben reported from the engineering station. They are trying to reject the poisoned energy, but their systems are not designed for it. Phase 2 began as Amy Watson activated the new communication system. Instead of trying to speak to the Devourers in any known language, the Alliance broadcast pure human emotions: confusion, fear, anger, but also hope, curiosity, and the desire for peace. The Devourers stopped moving entirely. For the first time in thousands of years, they encountered minds they could not easily read or understand. They are trying to drain our consciousness, Dr. Park reported from her medical station. But the mental shields are working. They cannot get a clear read on our thoughts. The third phase was the most dangerous. Tom Fisher's navigation system coordinated all the Alliance ships in a complex dance around the Devourers. Instead of attacking, they surrounded the ancient beings in a pattern that seemed random, but was actually carefully designed. What are You doing? Demanded Vorthik, one of the Kelani commanders. We are showing them something they have never seen before, Jake explained. Cooperation without domination. Strength without aggression. The pattern the ships created was beautiful and complex. It was part mathematics, part art, part music translated into movement. The Devourers watched, fascinated despite themselves. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Jake opened a communication channel to the Devourers. We know what you are, he broadcast. We know what you fear. We are not here to replace you. We are here to coexist. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then one of the Devourers responded, its voice like the sound of dying stars. Impossible. All young species seek to dominate. All growth leads to conflict. Not all species, Dr. Park transmitted. Humans have learned to grow through cooperation. We can teach others. You lie, another Devourer replied. We have observed species for millennia. Power corrupts. Growth leads to war. Then observe us, Jake challenged. See how we work with other species. See how we solve problems together instead of fighting. What followed was unlike any battle in galactic history. Instead of fighting with weapons, both sides fought with ideas. The Devourers projected images of the civilizations they had destroyed, showing how each had become corrupt and aggressive as it grew. The Alliance responded by showing their own cooperation. Live feeds from the ships demonstrated how humans, Zephyrians, Kelani, and others worked together. They showed the research teams, the mixed crews, the shared decision-making. This cannot last, the third Devourer transmitted. When faced with true crisis, you will turn on each other. Then test us, Frairen challenged from his command ship. Create a crisis and see what happens. The Devourers did exactly that. They created an illusion of one of the Alliance ships being in mortal danger. According to their understanding of species behavior, the other ships would abandon their ally to save themselves. Instead, every ship in the Alliance fleet immediately moved to help. Humans, Zephyrians, Kelani, and Valdari all risked themselves to save a ship that was not even real. The Devourers were stunned. In thousands of years, they had never seen anything like it. Why? The first Devourer asked. Why risk yourself for others? Because that is what friends do, Amy Watson replied simply. The conversation continued for hours. The Devourers shared their history, their fears, their loneliness. They had been alone for so long that they had forgotten what cooperation felt like. They destroyed young civilizations, not just out of fear, but out of jealousy for the connections those species shared. We could teach you, Miss Rimiki transmitted gently. You could learn to connect with others instead of consuming them. We are too old, the second Devourer replied sadly. Too set in our ways. No one is too old to change, Dan Cooper transmitted from his medical bay. We have seen it happen many times. The breakthrough came when Dr. Park made an offer that shocked everyone, including her own crew. Join us, she transmitted. Not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals. Help us explore the galaxy peacefully. The suggestion was so unexpected that every ship in both fleets fell silent. You would trust us? The third Devourer asked in amazement. We would give you the chance to earn that trust, Jake replied. What followed was the longest silence in galactic history. The three Devourers communicated among themselves in ways that no other species could understand. Finally, they spoke. We will try, the first Devourer said, but we do not know how to be anything other than what we are. Then we will learn together, Miss Rimiki replied. The battle ended without a single shot being fired in anger. Instead of destroying their ancient enemy, the Alliance had gained new allies. The Devourers agreed to stop their expansion and to work with the other species to find new ways of existing. But the real victory was what happened next. News of the successful. Negotiations spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had been hiding from the Devourers for thousands of years came forward to join the alliance. Within months, the new frontier became the flagship of the largest peaceful coalition in galactic history. Over 100 species worked together, sharing knowledge, resources, and friendship. Jake stood on the observation deck of the now massive space station that had grown around the new frontier. Ships from dozens of worlds came and went, carrying diplomats, scientists, artists, and explorers. "We did it," Dr. Park said, joining him at the window. "We actually did it." "We all did it," Jake corrected. "Humans, Cepharians, Kelani, Valdari, even the Devourers. Everyone contributed." Frairen approached them, his warrior's bearing softened by months of peaceful cooperation. "Your species has changed the galaxy," he said to Jake. "You have shown us that growth does not have to mean conflict. And you have shown us that the universe is bigger and more wonderful than we ever imagined." Jake replied. Miss Rimiki joined the group, her ancient eyes bright with hope. "This is only the beginning," she said. "There are still dark corners of the galaxy, still species that prefer isolation to cooperation. But now we have something we never had before, proof that peace is possible." Amy Watson's voice came over. "The communication system. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from Earth. The first cultural exchange ship is ready to launch." Jake smiled. Soon, humans from Earth would be coming to see what their representatives had helped build. Artists would share their work with alien minds. Scientists would collaborate on projects that no single species could complete alone. Children would grow up learning about the vast community of intelligent life in the galaxy. "What happens next?" Dr. Park asked. "Next, we keep growing," Jake replied. "But we grow together, as friends." Ben Collins joined them, his engineering uniform now marked with decorations from a dozen different species. "The new ships are ready," he reported. "We can start exploring the far reaches of the galaxy." "Together," Kate Reynolds added, arriving. "With Tom Fisher and Dan Cooper. Always together." As they watched, a new ship launched from the station. It was unlike anything ever built before, a fusion of technologies from dozens of species, crewed by beings from across the galaxy, designed not for war, but for exploration and discovery. The ship's name was painted in multiple languages on its hull, Unity's Dream. "The real adventure is just beginning," Jake said, echoing Dr. Park's words from months before. Far below them, in the diplomatic quarters, the three Devourers who had become the first of their kind to choose cooperation. Overconsumption were learning to play a Kalani musical instrument. Their haunting melodies mixed with laughter from human children and the complex harmonies of Zephyrine singers. The galaxy had found its voice at last. It was the sound of countless species singing together in harmony, each contributing their unique voice to a song that could only be created by working together. And in the Kwai,